My father was a soldier. And from the time I was a little boy, I thought there was no better choice for a man other than to serve Caesar. All the world is Rome. And there is one master of it all, and that is Caesar. When a man becomes a Roman soldier, he becomes part of a very well-organized system. Everywhere there is law, there is order, there is stability, and we Centurions make sure that it stays that way. But one can't help but see that just because there is order and stability doesn't necessarily mean that there's justice. There's oppression for those who are not friends of Caesar. The tax collector takes grain from the fields, flax from the looms to feed and clothe our legions, and of course to feed Caesar's hungry treasury. The oppressor compels people for the arenas, for the brutal games that entertain the crowds. The executioner silences those who would raise their voices. There's persecution of men who dare to think differently. And everywhere there's contempt for human life. What is one man, more or less, in a crowded world? I couldn't help seeing it, but for a long time, I guess I just tried not to think about it. Then, all of a sudden, there was this man, not a revolutionary, but a teacher, a healer who raised his voice in Galilee. Me and my men were often sent to where he was because he would attract these huge crowds. And we were on crowd control to remind the Jews that it would be unhealthy for them to try and incite a riot. They're an emotional people. That if they were lively, they would quiet down when we appeared, and when the man, Jesus, began to speak. They were quiet as mice. Even way out on the edge of the crowd, we could hear every word that he said. He spoke of the sanctity of human life, the value of every human soul, the importance of every person reaching out in kindness to help others. He spoke of a kingdom where every man can walk in dignity and bow to none but his God. We didn't report any of that, obviously. He wasn't preaching a revolution. At one point, he told his followers, "Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's." And frankly, I doubt if even Tiberius himself would have quarreled with that. When the orders came down that he was to be put to death, I was sick inside. I'm a soldier. I've seen my fair share of bloodshed battles, but we're soldiers. We're not executioners. And that man Jesus wasn't an enemy. He wasn't even a criminal. He was a wise and gentle man. But we were soldiers under orders. We weren't given a choice. It must have been building inside me for a while, this whole business about justice. I used to think that the Roman government was the best system in the world. But it isn't just. Not to people who aren't Roman citizens, anyway. I want my life to stand for something I can be proud of, but if it doesn't stand for justice, then what does it stand for? You can understand why I'm struggling with this. It's not easy for me to accept that the thing that I've given my whole life to defend is not even worth defending. It's rotten inside. That was what impressed me the most about Jesus. He stood for something. It was something good. And he believed in it enough to die for it. The man died as nobly as he lived. Crucifixion is an excruciating death. Typically, its victims are screaming, cursing, but not Jesus. No, Jesus looked down at me and at my men, and he asked his Father to forgive us for nailing him up there. I could have wept. That was when I cried out, truly, this man was the Son of God. And I meant it. Yeah, I meant it. He spoke to his Father several times while he hung there dying. And as he died, his Father responded. There was a terrifying darkness, a crashing of thunder, lightning splits the sky. That was real. I fell to my knees beside the cross, for I believed then, and I believe now, that God is his Father. And everything that Jesus said about himself was absolutely true. I count myself lucky that God didn't strike me dead for my part in the crucifixion. I don't know what I'll do now. Being a soldier is the only trade I've ever known. Perhaps the God who is the Father of Jesus can find some use for a centurion who wants to live the way that Jesus lived. If he wants me, I'm certain he'll let me know.